Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and in today's video I want to share with you guys my final Game Week 4 wildcard draft for those of you guys on a wildcard, and also take a look at an early Game Week 6 wildcard. Now the reason why I've done this is because I know there are a couple of you guys who are on the fence right now. You don't know whether to hit the button now in Game Week 4 or save it for later down the line in Game Week 6. So I've put together two different drafts that you can compare with and see how far your teams are with respect to each of these drafts and decide whether you want to wildcard in Game Week 4 or Game Week 6. Hopefully you guys find some use in today's video. It did take quite a while to put together, so if you do enjoy it, please do drop a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. It goes a very long way in helping the channel, so I do appreciate if you guys can just take a second or two to hit the subscribe button down below. Now, let's start off this video with a kind of a big picture comparison of a Game Week 4 wildcard and a Game Week 6 wildcard, starting with the teams to target. Now, for Game Week 4 wildcards, you would kind of agree with me that Brighton and Liverpool players are the players that everyone is targeting right now. Whether you are on a Game Week 4 wildcard or whether you're just using free transfers, everyone is trying to bring in Brighton players as well as Liverpool players. People without Salah are trying to fit him in. People without João Pedro are selling Isak to get João Pedro. So Game Week 4 wildcards would be largely centered around Brighton and Liverpool players, but when you look over to the Game Week 6 wildcard, the teams to target there kind of change quite a bit in terms of Brentford, Man City, Spurs and Arsenal all having very good fixture swings from then onwards. So by the same token as well, the Game Week 4 wildcard teams to target, which are the Brighton as well as Liverpool players, start to have a bad kind of a swing from Game Week 6 onwards as well. So I guess the way that I would look at this is take a look at my own team right now and look at how many players I have from these respective teams. And if, say for example, in my position, I'm heavily loaded on Brighton assets at the moment, for my own team, I'm likely going to have 3 Brighton players come Game Week 4. In that sense, I'm not too far away from a Game Week 4 wildcard, but when I look at the Game Week 6 wildcard, I would be quite far away from it because the Game Week 6 wildcard would likely not have any Brighton players and would have players from Man City, Spurs, Arsenal and Brentford, who by the time I reach Game Week 6, I wouldn't have many of these players as well. So for my own team, in my own situation, a Game Week 6 wildcard would suit me. If you want to take a look at how my team looks like, yesterday I released a transfer plans video, an updated one where I share my full team, and at the moment I'm leaning towards a Game Week 6 wildcard myself. So again, how I would see whether I should wildcard in Game Week 4 or Game Week 6 is take a look at the number of players you have from these teams and then decide when is the best window for you. But a Game Week 6 wildcard, again there with those teams Brentford, Man City, Spurs and Arsenal, is really a time when there are going to be quite a number of swings. So particularly for a Game Week 4 wildcard now, you would have to try and have a couple of players from these, Brentford, Man City, Spurs and Arsenal kind of assets in your team in Game Week 4 already to get ready for the fixture swing come Game Week 6. So that leads me on very nicely to the next kind of portion of this graphic here, where I take a look at the common players in both my Game Week 4 and Game Week 6 wildcard. Now, I've put together two different drafts and I figured out that, in both drafts, there's Haaland, Havertz, Eze, Semenyo and Porro. Now, I would label these players as key players because I think these would be high scoring players that I wouldn't be willing to compromise on. So Haaland, I think it's a no-brainer. Everyone will have him in both, whether a Game Week 4 wildcard or a Game Week 6 wildcard. Now, Havertz is interesting because he's someone I definitely want on a Game Week 6 wildcard, but because of the fact that for example, you're wildcarding now in Game Week 4, you need to start getting ready with Arsenal assets, and that's simply the main reason why I would still include him in a Game Week 4 wildcard. So he has Tottenham in Game Week 4. It's not the worst fixture in the world. I do see some goals in there, but the thing is, you would really only be including him in the Game Week 4 wildcard simply because you want to target the Game Week 6 fixture swing for Arsenal. So that's the thinking behind Havertz. For Eze, he has Leicester now in Game Week 4. He has Everton in Game Week 6. So whether you're wildcard in Game Week 4 or Game Week 6, you're likely going to have him. And the fixture run for Crystal Palace is really good. What Eze offers as an asset at 7 million. I'm currently at 6.9, but he's likely going to rise to 7 million by the time Game Week 6 comes around. So I think Eze, for what he offers, 90 minutes on penalties, we know what we get with Eze. He's such a good asset. I think we will have him in both Game Week 6 and Game Week 4 wildcards. As for Semenyo, he is more of an enabler. In Game Week 4, you likely won't be using him because he has Chelsea. In Game Week 5, he has Liverpool. But Game Week 6 is when you would really want Semenyo because he has Southampton. And then also a good fixture, I think Leicester, if I'm not wrong, in Game Week 7. So those two kind of good fixtures there would be a great time to use Semenyo. And I do think, like, if you're on a Game Week 4 wildcard, despite him not having good fixtures now in Game Week 4 as well as Game Week 5, you are having him on your bench in preparation for that. And then for Porro as well, he is a similar player where in Game Week 4 he has a tough fixture, but Game Week 5 he has a good fixture against Brentford. And then come Game Week 6 onwards, the fixtures start to swing for Spurs, and that's when I would also have Porro in the draft. So I'll speak more about these kind of key players when we take a look at the drafts later on. But I just want to mention a couple of fringe players that I happen to have in both the Game Week 4 and Game Week 6 wildcard that are just players I happen to have in both drafts, not by the fact that they are very integral to both drafts. So that's why I've labeled them as fringe players. You can very well just play around with these kind of spots. So Konza here, I just have him in both drafts because whether in Game Week 4 or Game Week 6, I do back the Aston Villa fixtures as well as the defense, and him at 4.5 is quite a stable and safe asset to have. And then for Flecken and Fabianski, I do think like at this point, whether I wildcard in 4 or Game Week 6, this kind of keeper pairing just works because it's a 4.5 asset from Brentford, so fixtures will be good from Game Week 6 onwards, and even without the good fixtures now in Game Week 4, Fabianski can likely cover for him because Areola seems to be out with a back injury. So I think it works quite well that by the time, Areola comes back, maybe Flecken's fixtures start to turn from Game Week 6 onwards and you can start Flecken moving forward. So I do think like if I was on a Game Week 4 or Game Week 6 wildcard, I would still have this keeper pairing, Flecken and Fabianski. And then for Harold Bellis, that's just kind of a 4 million bench fodder spot. Whether you are on a Game Week 4 or Game Week 6 wildcard, you can very well change your bench fodder depending on your preference. So I think in general, this is a big picture kind of comparison of a Game Week 4 versus a Game Week 6 wildcard. And what I would say is that it is very team dependent, whether you should wildcard in Game Week 4 or Game Week 6. So again, I would kind of lead you back to the earlier section there on the teams to target. Take a look at how many players you have from these teams, how far you are away from a Game Week 4 and a Game Week 6 wildcard, and then kind of decide which is the best time to wildcard for you. Bearing in mind as well, these are not the only windows to use the wildcard. If you are prepared and your team is able to navigate Game Week 4 and Game Week 6 very well, you can delay the wildcard later down the line to Game Week 8, Game Week 10, Game Week 12. Those are all very viable windows as well. But I just wanted to focus on these two windows here to help those on a Game Week 4 kind of a situation where you don't know to hit the wildcard or not. So hopefully this kind of section clears it up a little bit. Let's take a look at my final Game Week 4 wildcard draft. So for Game Week 4, this is where I've landed. Let's start with the team value. It's 100.3 million, so slightly on the expensive side. But for the time being, I know there are a couple of teams that have quite a big budget there. I've seen teams with about 101 million already. So I've put it at 100.3 million, which I think is generally affordable. If you aren't able to afford it, you can downgrade some players. The formation is a 3-4-3, and for keeper pairing, as I've mentioned just now, Fabianski can cover for Flecken now in Game Week 4, and that's why I've gone with this kind of keeper pairing here. From Game Week 6 onwards, Flecken would very well come in to the starting 11 to take advantage of Brentford's good fixture run all the way moving forward. So that's for keeper pairing. Fabianski starts here with Fulham away. In terms of defenders, on a Game Week 4 wildcard, as I've mentioned, we need to kind of target Liverpool assets, so at least one defender here. So I've gone for Robertson because I don't think Robertson is too far off from Trent in terms of attacking numbers. And obviously they have the same kind of fixtures because they both are in the Liverpool defense. So good fixtures for Robertson, and I think he is also starting to play more minutes than Trent as well. That also kind of gives him more propensity for attacking returns. but also the flip side is that it's possible that they kind of concede late goals, etc. So I do think like either ways, Robertson is quite a stable asset from Liverpool. At 6 million, I would have him here. And it also provides a bit of cost saving, 1 million to be exact, to fund players like Salah and Haaland up front, where this is a Salah and Haaland draft, so it is quite expensive. Now, for the other defenders, I've gone for Konza and Lewis in the starting 11. Konza here, as I've mentioned, is in both drafts. Everton at home in game week 4, he's just a very stable asset to have. Villa's fixtures are still very good. Yes, Champions League is coming up, but I do think like Konza will continue to be in the starting 11 for Aston Villa. And I like that they are quite a solid defense. I do kind of back them in terms of their defensive numbers. So with the fixtures in mind, I do think like Konza would be a good asset to have. And then for Rico Lewis here, he is someone that I would be willing to take a gamble on. He's at 4.7 million right now, so already 2 price rises from his original 4.5 million price tag. But that also kind of gives you an indication of how highly rated the FPL community thinks Lewis is. And I think by nature of just looking at the positions he's taking up during open play, it's very convincing that soon a haul is coming for him. And I think in game week 4, you have the Brentford fixture here, which I think he's likely to start. When Champions League comes around, there could be rotation, as with many other Man City assets. And Kyle Walker could very well replace Rico Lewis. And I know the big kind of factor would be whether Kyle Walker comes in for the Arsenal game in game week 5. If that is the case, then we can kind of draw some conclusions there about maybe Kyle Walker playing the slightly tougher games and Lewis being used in the slightly easier ones. But that being said, I would be willing to take the gamble here in game week 4. And if somehow it pays off that Lewis continues to start moving forward, which could very well be the case because I look at the way that he plays, as well as Pep singing praises of Lewis's ability, I do think like there's a good chance he could continue to start moving forward. So I would take the gamble here that would be the case. Take this Brentford fixture, and then after that from game week 5, you look at the bench, you have Porro who has Arsenal now in game week 4, but game week 5 he has Brentford. You can just swap Lewis down to the bench and Porro into the starting 11. The next time you would likely need to use Lewis would be game week 6. By the time that comes around, you would have a slightly better indication of whether his minutes are good or not. If they are not good, then you can very well just start Porro, Robertson, and Konza for the next few, and then have a bit of free transfers come game week 7, game week 8, around that period to deal with Rico Lewis. So that's why I would be willing to take a calculated risk on Lewis here, and the upside is there, so it's worth it. And just to cover the other kind of defenders on the bench, Porro, as I've mentioned just now, he would come in for Rico Lewis in game week 5, and also fixtures from game week 6 onwards are good for Spurs. So he is also in preparation for kind of covering a game week 6 wildcard where you don't want to be too far away from a game week 6 wildcard draft as well. With good fixtures for Spurs, you have this asset here already, and it saves you a transfer down the line. For Harold Bellis, again, a bench fodder, so I won't speak too much. As for the midfielders, it's Minte, Luis Diaz, Eze, and Salah. So for Salah here, I've gone for him. This is a Salah and Haaland draft because I do think like game week 5 captaincy is very important. And he has Bournemouth at home. So I do think that could be a really good game for him to score well in. And I just want to cover that captaincy if I was on a game week 4 wildcard. So he's here, but there are plans to move him on, which I'll share towards the end of this draft. And then Luis Diaz here, he's someone that I prefer over Jota because he looks more in form at the moment. And you would likely only be needing him for game week 4 and game week 5. For sure, there are a lot of other assets, a lot of other attackers that Liverpool can play, like Cody Gakpo, Darwin Núñez as well, which could be coming back. But I think in terms of like-for-like comparison, like-for-like replacement, it's more Luis Diaz competing with Cody Gakpo, and then Darwin Núñez competing with Jota. But I also wouldn't rule out the fact that Darwin Núñez could very well play on the left if needed. So I think in general there is risk with Luis Diaz, but I think for the time being with the form that he's in, I don't see that risk being too great. And he has great fixtures now in game week 4, which is Nottingham Forest. Game week 5, it's Bournemouth. Later down the line, he becomes Mbeumo. very nicely because he's at 7.5 and Mbeumo is only at 7. So you can simply drop him down, and he's only a player you'll need for 2 game weeks. So I have him here to cover the good Liverpool fixtures, which I've mentioned we want to target Liverpool assets as well. So it's Robertson, Diaz, and Salah here from Liverpool. And then for Minte, I do like Minte because he helps to kind of double up on Brighton, where the fixtures are really good. Ipswich at home in game week 4, Nottingham Forest at home in game week 5. I do want an extra kind of Brighton attacker, and Minte looks very lively. He's cheap at 5.5 as well, and also enables this Salah and Haaland draft. So I like that. Now, looking at the forwards, I have João Pedro, Haaland, and Havertz. João Pedro is mainly to cover the Brighton assets. He is kind of the best asset I would go for here from Brighton. For Haaland, no real questions asked here. He doesn't have West Ham away. Let me just correct that. He has Brentford at home, so the graphic is slightly wrong. Do apologize for that. But he will be the captain for game week 4. And in the kind of last spot here for striker position, it's Havertz, Tottenham away. So again, that I mentioned just now, he is kind of a long-term play where you would want him already in game week 6. So you have to move early and have Havertz already. So that's kind of why I've gone for Havertz. The last player I haven't mentioned that's on the bench is Semenyo. Now for Semenyo, again, a long-term play similar to Havertz where you would want him come game week 6. But he has Chelsea now in game week 4, and he also has Liverpool in game week 5. So not ideal, and that's why he's on the bench, but he would come in quite handy in terms of rotation once game week 6 comes around. So there we go with this game week 4 wildcard draft. Transfer plans for this draft come game week 6 is to bring Mbeumo in for Luis Diaz, and also do Robertson out for Gabriel to double up on Arsenal at least. So we'll have Gabriel and Havertz from Arsenal, and then we would have Mbeumo in midfield come game week 6, and also Eze there from game week 6 onwards. So there are kind of ways to tweak this draft to make it look quite similar to a game week 6 wildcard by the time that comes around. So I do like the flexibility that this draft enables. Now, another kind of combination that I've thought about that if you're going on a game week 4 wildcard with this draft, you can think about is Robertson to Gabriel, so that stays, but Salah to Saka instead. So instead of getting Mbeumo in game week 6, you get Saka first for Salah, and then 1 week later you do Luis Diaz to Mbeumo. So those are different combinations you can work out, but either ways, I don't think this draft would stray too far from game week 6 wildcard by the time that comes around. And I do think like it's prepared for the future as well. So I do like it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, who you would include and who you would remove from this draft that you think is too dangerous. Let me know your thoughts about Rico Lewis. I know that one could turn some heads. But if not, this is my final Game Week 4 wildcard for those of you on a Game Week 4 wildcard. And let's take a look now at the Game Week 6 early wildcard. So for game week 6, looking at an early wildcard draft, this is where I am at the moment. It's 100.1 in terms of team value, and the formation is also a 3-4-3. Now, caveats here is obviously that this is a very early wildcard. Players could get injured in the lead up to game week 6. That could change the nature of the game week 6 wildcard draft. But I think for the time being, barring any kind of major injuries, this is where I'm likely tending towards. And in terms of keeper pairing, again, it's Flecken and Fabianski. We've already discussed that, so I wouldn't go into too much detail. I want to speak more about the differences here in the defense, midfield, and the forward positions. So in defense, Saliba here is the main difference, as well as Vardiol. So I'll speak about Saliba first. For Saliba, I do want Arsenal coverage. And I do think like Saliba is a slightly more kind of stable pick for the long run. From game week 6, if you wildcard, you will be planning all the way until at least the mid-season point, which is when you would get your next wildcard. So Saliba feels like a safe pick, whether there's Champions League, whether there's EFL Cups, etc. You will still back him to start in many of the Arsenal games. So I think going for him here instead of Gabriel, though he has slightly lesser goal threat, he will provide security of minutes and coverage for the Arsenal clean sheets. So Saliba is here. Konza, we already mentioned he has good fixtures, safe and stable pick, so he's here. For Vardiol here, the reason why I've gone for Vardiol instead of someone like Rico Lewis, by the time Game Week 6 comes around, if Rico Lewis is a good option, you could very well get Rico Lewis instead of Vardiol. But again, with a similar thinking to Saliba there, where I want a stable asset to have in terms of a Man City defender, because the fixtures are so good, especially from Game Week 7 onwards. Right, Game Week 6 is slightly tougher, it's Newcastle away, but Game Week 7 onwards is seriously a sea of green for Man City, and I want some defensive coverage there. I know Vardiol at this point is not really putting in a lot of FPL points, whether it's attacking returns or whether it's clean sheets, but I think if Kyle Walker comes back, right, then Rico Lewis could be a bit of a doubt. But Vardiol is someone that will always start every single game week. You would back him to start, at least for the time being as well. So if I was to go for a more stable and safe pick, that would be Vardiol here. So I've included him here, slightly more expensive than Rico Lewis. In fact, 1.3 million more expensive. But I think it's worth it if I want a stable Man City pick. Now, in terms of the midfielders, the main differences, it's Saka, Mbeumo, and Rodgers on the bench. So Rodgers, I've only included him here, mainly because he's a good enabler to have, but really I don't intend to start him every other game week. He is more of a bench fodder for me, which sounds a bit crazy because people have brought him in now in game week 3, game week 4, thinking that he would be a good asset to have. I also have him in my own team and I will be starting him, but I think my thoughts about him are starting to kind of dwindle a little bit in terms of how good he is as an asset. So I would have him here in this Game Week 6 draft, likely more as an enabler only. And in terms of the other kind of more key picks, it's Mbeumo and Saka that are major differences compared to the Game Week 4 wildcard. Now the thing is, Saka here helps to cover the Arsenal fixtures. Again, when you look at this draft, kind of a big picture view, there's Saliba, Saka and Havertz. That's mainly to take advantage of the good fixture run that Arsenal has from game week 6 until game week 8. Later down the line, you can very well swap Saka out for someone like Son if possible. So he's here to capture the Arsenal fixtures. And for Mbeumo, again from game week 6, Brentford's fixtures are really good, so you want to start with him here already. The main difference is that in game week 4, you would have gone with Luis Diaz first and then later dropped him down to Mbeumo. Now in game week 6, you wildcard, you would probably just go with Mbeumo from the start. Now up front, there's Solanke, Haaland and Havertz. So Haaland and Havertz pretty much the same. For Solanke, he's mainly here because Spurs fixtures are really good, as I've mentioned, and that was also the thinking for Porro on the bench, who's currently seated second in terms of the outfielders. But really, from game week 7 onwards, yes, in game week 6 it's not great, it's Manchester United away. But game week 7 onwards, that's when you see Spurs fixtures start to turn, and you would want players like Solanke if he's fit. I know at this point he is still yellow flagged, so keep a lookout for that one. But I think by the time game week 6 comes around, with the kind of thinking in mind that Ange Postecoglou last mentioned Solanke could be using the international break to get ready and recover from his injury, he should be available after the international break. If that's the case and Solanke is ready for game week 6, I do imagine he would be quite a bit of a bandwagon on a game week 6 wildcard. So I have him here to take advantage of good Spurs fixtures from game week 7 onwards. So there we go. For a game week 6 kind of early wildcard. Again, you see there's not a lot of big differences. The key kind of players would stay between a game week 4 and a game week 6 wildcard. But the main differences are that you would be moving on those kind of Arsenal, Spurs, Man City, Brentford assets already in a game week 6 wildcard. So hopefully this draft that I've put together here helps those of you on a game week 4 kind of situation where you're deciding whether to hit the wildcard or not, to really look at your team leading up to game week 6 with the transfers you've planned and how far you are from this draft. If you are very far away, maybe a game week 6 wildcard suits you better. If you are currently far away from a game week 4 wildcard instead, you don't have a lot of Brighton players, you don't have a lot of Liverpool players, you're struggling to get Salah in with no clear route, etc., then maybe a game week 4 wildcard is better suited for you. So whether or not you wildcard in game week 4 or game week 6, I think both these drafts look pretty good in these kind of respective weeks. So I don't think there's a clear kind of situation as to which one is better. It's more about which one is better suited for your team. So let me know what you guys think, and hopefully this video was helpful for you. If you did enjoy it, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe as well. We are on the road to 9,000 subscribers, and I know there are quite a number of you guys that have checked the YouTube analytics, and there are a couple of you guys who are watching but you're not subscribed. So please do help me out and scroll down a little bit. Just takes a second or two to help me out and click the subscribe button. It goes a very long way in helping the channel. If not, I will catch you guys in more Game Week 4 content coming tomorrow.